Amazing. Well, welcome everybody to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm super humbled and grateful to share the mic with a mentor, a teacher, and somebody that I'm very honored to have close proximity with, Mr. Joseph McClendon III. How are you, my friend?
I could not be doing better, believe it or not, even and especially in these, let's just say, challenging times.
Challenging for sure. Well, you know, for anybody that is not certain about, you know, Joseph McClendon III is one of the most sought off ultimate performance specialists in the world. This gentleman, his unique techniques and the way he rapidly is able to trigger the personal change that effectively moves you to take more consistent action and go further faster with your personal and business achievements is magnificent. I've been able to, you know, feel this gentleman's energy, and he's nothing but heart. You know, he's delivered hundreds of keynote addresses and has presented to well over millions and millions of people, 3 million around the globe. He's remarkable ability to go straight to the core of any challenge that we have and affect a rapid change makes him super unique in the presence of business, health, wellness, and personal improvement. I just want to touch on real quick, Joseph, how you've taught at UCLA for 7 years, and you know you're frequently being called upon to lecture at so many different institutions among Harvard and other Fortune 500 companies. And among that, you know, just to tip it all off at the top of it, you know, you've also partnered with a world-renowned life coach, Tony Robbins, for the past 30 years. So again, I just want to really thank you for your time. I'm pumped. I'm excited. And you know, let's change the world in the next hour.
Let's go. Now, that's small task, but let's go. Thank you so much, Eric, and I'm honored to be on your show here. And my hat is off to you, and I thank you for doing what you're doing, because the more voices and the more impact that we have in the world right now, the better things are going to be, because the world needs more leaders. So you're the man. And just the way we met, you know, I remember when we met in Australia. It was, as you always call it, divine intervention, that kind of thing. And we were just kind of, both of us were eating breakfast, I think it was. And we just started talking, and then bam. And I realized how much of an amazing person you were. And the next thing you knew, we pulled your ass up there on stage to deliver. And that process and you going through that, you know, I admire you for going through that, because you stuck with it and you won over. There had to be, what, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people in that audience. So you changed a lot of people's lives.
And it was amazing. It was so humbling, you know, just that feeling of being on stage and, you know, spending that time with you that same morning, literally, right? And then I think we touched on it briefly too, is like after we wrote that letter, after that whole experience of being on stage, you know, how that was so magnifying, and being in front of that many people, you know, all at once was really life-changing. It was a pivotal moment in my life, and I anchor myself in that moment. And every time I, you know, have these struggles, quote unquote struggles, of life that keeps happening for us, I put myself back there. So I just want to, that was a huge life-changing moment, and it was a great way to get to know each other really well.
Absolutely.
So Joseph, you know, I really want to, you know, take advantage of, you know, the time that we have together, and, you know, the podcast, I use it with called the Resilient Minds podcast. And we really discuss in a really elaborate way our experience of life and how it really contributes to our why. So like our X factor, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I always believe that, you know, and you know, the teachings, you know, that we all continue to learn upon ourselves from, you know, our mentors or you know the Stoics, anything, I believe that is always really not detrimental, but advantageous to utilize our experience and pass that on because it resonates. So what I'm trying to always, you know, communicate with the audience is how our experiences will actually evolve our purpose or push our why moving forward. And right now there's some really unique advantages or experiences. Crisis creates opportunity in the world. And I just wanted to, throughout your experience of life, you know, people are going through different struggles and uncertainties. And I guess if you don't mind taking us back in the Cole's Notes version, of course, of your experience throughout the resilience that you had to create what you have today, or to evolve to the human that you are today, and to the pushing the mission that you continue to, waking up every day, the whys and the interviews and everything that you continue to. And I know it's a very big question, but if you don't mind, we can just, you know, we can just really, in the Cole's Notes version, take us back to how it all began. How did Joseph McClendon III?
Well, first off, yeah, I like that you ask real simple questions, Eric. Thanks a lot. No, I through my stories, my experiences, I've always believed that we're all storytellers, and our story can shift other people's lives as well. And I don't mind doing that at all. And it's especially poignant for the times that we're in right now. So whenever you are, the listener, is listening to this recording, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, or it's just a few days from now, we are in my life and most of our lives, the most challenging times of the planet. And that's not an exaggeration. You know, I'm in America, and we right now it's a double whammy, the COVID situation, crisis, as well as we're having a huge unrest in our country. There's looting and rioting, as well as racial tension and racial uprising going on. And so I'll speak to that, to what brought me to where I am right now, and the message that I am doing as best as I can to get this message across to as many people as I can right now. And as you'll hear it, this message it rings true in the future as well, because it always has. Absolutely. And I have a special attachment to what's going on here. I've had my own health issues. I was near death. I had viral spinal meningitis one time in my life. I was afraid I was going to die and hoping I would. That's how painful it was. Before that, I had, you know this, that I was homeless once in my life, Eric. And I was homeless not because I had a bad upbringing. I had a great upbringing. I had great parents, great experiences as a child. But I became homeless because when I was 17 and a half years old, 3 grown men tried to take my life because of the color of my skin. And they took everything from me, not in material things. My body was scarred, and they healed, those wounds healed, but my insides, my emotions didn't. And it broke me. And I became homeless because I felt worthless. I felt if they could do that to me, then it was something wrong with me. And what changed my life, Eric, was 2 things. Number one, my father raised me to have integrity. My father was a 26-year military man in the United States Air Force. He was unbelievably patriotic, unbelievably disciplined, and he raised all of us children to have integrity, meaning you do what you say you're going to do, your word is your bond, and all those things. But he also raised us to have tenacity, meaning you do something. If you say you're going to do it, you don't just do it once, you don't do it twice, you do it over and over again till you get the result. You know, that's how you get good at anything. And that's what he raised, but I forgot all of that stuff when I became homeless. And what changed for me was somebody gave me the book, Think and Grow Rich. And it was somebody that I didn't know. It was a kind stranger, gave me the book, and I read the book, and here's the difference, because a lot of people have read the book. I read the book, and I did the exercises in the book. And I'll never forget this. When I started reading the book, I read it, and it wasn't just a storybook, obviously. It was like, you do this, you'll get these results. And then it hit me, well, wait a minute, that's the way I was raised. So I said I was going to do it, and then I not only did it, but I did it every day. You know, he said to do, like affirmations twice a day. I would do them 10 times a day. I do them over and over again. And my life changed. What brought me to where I am right now, you said the Cold Notes version of this, because there's a lot going on between them, was I went back to that gentleman to thank him for giving me the book. And I asked him, I said, you know, you've changed my life. How do I repay you? What do I do for you? And what he said to me changed my life. He said, Joseph, how you repay me is you do the same that I've done for you, for as many people as you possibly can for the rest of your life, in any way that you can. And, you know, I was 19 when I heard that, and it didn't resonate so strong with me. But as I went on, I realized that that is my calling, that is my passion, and that's why I do what I do now. And it's afforded me to be able to do the thing that, as you mentioned in the intro there, I'm a neuropsychologist, and I help people get over fears and phobias, emotional challenges, and things that hinder their lives. And I've got two unique skills. One of them you experienced, and that is on stage and teaching, and on stage and getting the results right then and there. Because I pride myself on if you're going to engage with me, we're going to get a result. If you got a fear of dogs, you come into my office, there's going to be a dog in the office, because at the end of that, you're going to hold the dog, you're going to be over the thing. But the other skill set that I have, at the risk of sounding arrogant, is teaching people to do it for themselves. And I think that is more valuable than me doing it for them, because the old adage, you know, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach them, you know, they'll do it forever. And so that's what, you know, brings us to where we are right now. I have had both of those experiences, life-threatening experiences in both. What's going on around. And I know the only thing that saved me, and the only thing that changed me, and it's the only thing that's going to change and save everybody else, is a radical shift in our beliefs and our behaviors. And so the mechanics of doing that are they're simple but not easy, and that's what's lacking right now. There are a lot of people talking about the problem, and a lot of people confused, a lot of people hurting, and a lot of people scared. And so what I look to do to bring to this conversation across the world as much as I can is the conversation about let's find out the beliefs that we could, should, would have that's going to serve us all, and let's change those beliefs, which will in turn change the behaviors. We'll treat each other better, and the world will be a better place.
You know, and that's, I think, a fundamental component of, like, you know, bringing, you know, leading with love, or sharing the light, or being so much determined behind of how we're gonna fulfill our why. And what is it that has continued to, like, bring that why, like, and it's been shining bright for, you know, the past, you know, 30-40 years for you, and continued to bring that to the masses? Because, like, Joseph, you know, I've seen you in front of, you know, thousands of people, and you're bringing energy, you're bringing that great, and you continue to do it online, you continue to do it during these times. In fact, I remember a couple of days ago, you shared something. People were talking about so much of the negative violence that's happening, but aren't sharing enough of the peaceful protests that are also happening. And to me, that was really powerful, because there is so much of that sharing of, because the loud sounds, it sounds, you know, it makes a bigger noise. But however, Joseph, you continue to push that why of having the voice of reason, the voice of love, the voice of passion, the voice of, what's the why? How do you continue staying so, you know, humble and persistent with this determined approach?
I think that's a two-pronged answer. The first one is, I remember when I said my father raised us with integrity. Yeah. And so I can't teach what I don't practice for myself. I always say that I won't teach theory. I can't teach you to swim if I don't swim myself, or ride a bicycle, or fly an airplane, or any of that stuff. And so, being said, I have had these experiences of not only in my own life, but I've had the privilege of coaching and mentoring and working with other people and helping them get results and change their lives. And so that's what I do. But why I do it is not the fame, is not the fortune. It is that you know, people always talk about, you know, when you find your passion. Well, this is my passion, but here's what passion is for people. It's when you do something, it's what you do when nobody's looking.
Wow.
That you continue to do, that is your passion, that you would do no matter what, that you would do even if you didn't get paid for it. It's what you do when nobody cares and nobody ever even knows. That's the measure of a man, and that's what fills me up. Because you know, and I certainly love it when people come up and say, Joseph, you changed my life and stuff like that, but that's not it. And I liken it to anybody that is a parent. You don't do for your children so that they can go, Mommy, Daddy, I love you. Mm-hmm. You know, you do it because it's the right thing to do and it fills you up. You know, when you go in, and I repeat what my dad did with me. And it was so funny because I remember as a kid, it used to go, why does he do that? My dad would come in every single night. My dad worked on the Air Force. He also worked a second job, and he also went to night school. So he wouldn't come in. I wouldn't see him all day long. He'd leave in the morning. He wouldn't come in till like 9 or 10 at night. And we'd be asleep most of the time. And my dad would always come in, and it would piss me off because he'd turn the light on. We'd be dead asleep, and he'd turn the light on. And he'd just look at us, you know. He'd go in each of our rooms. I had 3 sisters, and he'd go in and he'd just look at us. He wouldn't say anything. He'd just kind of look at us. And I'm always thinking at the kid, it's like, what the hell is he doing that for? But now I know, because it's a ritual with me. I don't turn the light on, but every night I go in and I kiss my son on the forehead. He's asleep. And I do it not because it fills me up. That's my passion. And so I liken my passion for doing what I'm doing as the same kind of passion that people have when they do something for other people, when they do something for their child, when they do something for a homeless person, when they give back, when they contribute it. And you and I know that, just based on the courses that you've gone through and things that we teach, that is one of our basic human needs, is that need to contribute to somebody. And so I've been able to fill my life up from a financial and an abundant standpoint in all those areas of my life. And what keeps me going, and what my reason why is when I walk away from a situation and I know that I've helped another soul, like somebody helped me.
Yeah.
And then that's what keeps me going. That's why I keep doing what I do.
Wow. You touched on something. It's what you do when no one's looking. And I think that just really resonates, especially right now with the current circumstances that's happening in the world. How can more people show up right now in living with that type of passion, that type of mentality, doing what's right even when no one's looking, what's right when no one's looking, in, you know, with what's happening, you know, in the United States right now with, you know, the whole experience of George Floyd, and, you know, the ways that, you know, people are, you know, sharing violence or riot, or, you know, the other way, where peaceful protests. What can they do more of to go by the right way, if that makes sense?
There are several things, and I'll take you through one with some steps. But the first thing is, the easiest thing that anybody and everybody can do is lead with love. Lead with love. In everything that you do, every step that you take, every breath that you take, every move that you make, I'll be watching. Everything that you do, go with love on your tongue, on your heart, and in your eyes. And the way to do that is this. Comes with a silly story. Here's how I learned this. And it's a procedure that we all can do, and we can start now. And I encourage everybody to do it, because it doesn't cost you any money, doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't really take you any time. When I was in my 20s and late 20s, early 30s, I was a musician, Eric. And I grew up in a small town, and in that small town, everybody knew each other. And there was this thing called common courtesy. Common courtesy was, if you're walking down the street and you see somebody, or they come across your path, you at least give them a nod and say, what's up, you know, or hi, how are you doing? Acknowledge that person's there. Well, when I moved from that town to Los Angeles, Hollywood, California, to seek my fortune as a musician, I moved there, and I'll never forget it. The day I got there, nobody would look at me. Nobody would acknowledge me. I'd walk down the street and it's like I'm this, bright-eyed kid going, I'm in Hollywood. And everybody would just blow. And this was before cell phones. So they didn't have the excuse of looking at their phone. They just, and it pissed me off. It upset me because I'm going, these people, they're plastic. They're pretentious. They're fake. And then I asked the question, Eric, I said, what if it's not them? And I thought, nah, it's got to be them because, I'm nice. And then I said, well, maybe there's something I'm doing, or maybe there's something I could do to shift that. And I created something called my 50-foot rule. And this is how you lead with love. And that is that anybody that comes within 50 feet of me, I say to myself, I love you, to them. I don't have to say it out loud, but my intention to them is sending them love. Now it causes you now, by the way, there's science behind this. I'm not going to go into it, but what it causes your brain to do in order for you to have that focus and to put that intention on somebody else, your brain has to go, what do I love about that person? And that searching process in your brain does three things. Number one, it creates what are called synapses response, meaning your brain is connecting A to B, and in the search, your brain is actually growing. The second thing that it does is it makes your brain release what are called dopamines. Dopamines are the substances, the chemicals that make you euphoric. Yeah. And the third thing that it does is it makes your electromagnetic energy field, at the risk of sounding too cosmic, expand. And when it does, they feel it, theirs expands, and you become more connected. You do this, you make their brain do the same thing. It releases dopamine, it changes its focus, it changes its receptors inside the brain and starts to make different connections. So you actually cause somebody else to feel somebody, and we've all had that experience where we look at a person from across the room and they feel us looking at them and they catch us looking. Or you think about somebody and the phone rings and it's them. That is leading with love at work. Now, we're in our houses. I don't know how it is with you down under, but here we've been on quarantine for 2.5 months now. And so people are saying, well, how do you lead with love that? It's just intention. In other words, it's right now, when you talk to somebody on the phone, when you think about somebody, if anything that is repeated will become a habit. So if you make a habit of every time you think of anybody, anything, when you're seeing these people hurt on the television, or hurting and doing all those things, you just love them. Just love them. Put that intention out there. That's number one. Number two, we have to approach what's going on from as I said before, what has to happen is there's got to be a shift in our beliefs and our behaviors. Benjamin Franklin said, he best put it, he said, justice will not prevail until those that are unaffected are just as outraged as those that are affected. And it's such a beautiful statement because it's the truth. Why would anybody change if they're not affected? If it doesn't bother them and they don't know how to be affected? Because see, I don't fault somebody that has a different color skin, a white person, because they don't know my experience. They just don't know, So right now they don't know, but guess what? They're outraged right now around the world, even in your country right now, by the way. I noticed that people are standing up and they're speaking out around the world. So that has happened right now. We are in that. That is the assessment of where we are right now. The unaffected are outraged and they get it. They don't know everything, but they get it. And they're going, okay, everybody's going, what we do? Well, it's like a paramedic showing up on the scene of an accident. Yeah. There's a set of protocols that they got to go through. First thing, assess the situation. Look around and assess the situation. Well, it's been assessed. Right now, the world is hurting. Right now, there's racial unrest. Right now, people are upset. Right now, people are confused. That's the assessment, okay? The second step is, once you find out where the attention needs to go, you got to stop the bleeding immediately. You know, if you come up on an accident and there's somebody laying in the road and they're bleeding all over the place, you don't go, how did this happen? All that stuff. You stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And how you stop the bleeding in this is you got to ask people what they want. Now, in this situation, and again, I'm only going to speak to what's happening in the US, but you got to have these millions of people in the streets right now. And if you ask all of them, what do you want? Their answer is, we want racial justice. We want racial equality. And that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
But the question I ask is, what do you need and what do you want right now that's going to make you feel better and get you out of this pain right now? And the answer in this case right now, the best thing is, and I left this post, you probably saw it, that there are 3 men that are out there right now that are still free. That if I had have done what they did, I would be arrested. And so what everybody's calling for right now, and it amazes me that our leadership doesn't do it, is those men need to at least be arrested and charged. That's going to make everybody going to go at least take a step back and stop the bleeding, because then they're going to feel like some of their needs are being met. Yeah. And then once you stop the bleeding, then you've got to stabilize the patient. And how you stabilize the patient is, remember this, and everybody listening, always remember this. If you don't ask somebody what they want and what they need, then they know on some level, energetically, emotionally, that you don't know what they want. If they don't get to speak it, if they don't get to tell you what they want, then they know, and they can feel, and probably will feel, like you're trying to get them to do something for you and not for them. And that feels like this. If I say to you, Eric, if you work hard and you give of your time and you sacrifice your money and your energy, you get up early and stay up late for the next year, I promise you, at the end of the year, I get to take my son and we get to go to Hawaii. It's like you're going, you know, yeah, so what? You know, because now you feel like, you know, you're going to do all this work, but you're not going to benefit. Yep. So instead, I need to ask you, what do you want? And then we sit down, and how you stabilize the patient is now we come up with a plan of what to do. And we say, okay, well, here's what my promise to you is. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put into legislation. We're going to train the cops, you know, in this situation or whatever it is. Yep. And then you transport the patient, you get them back in their homes and those kinds of things. And the last step is to follow through with treatment. So
you touched on, and I'm just going to get a little bit more clear with what you touched on there with the 3 individuals that are still out there. Is it all 3 or the 4th one as well? They're all still. No, they arrested the man that killed him with the foot on the neck. Yeah. But there were, look, forget the fact that I'm a black man. Yeah. Anybody. 100%. If I saw that I watched the video and I was horrified. Absolutely. If I saw you doing that, if you saw me doing that, we would be jumping on you to stop. But and by the way, that's why I'm saying you're as outraged as the people that are being affected, because as a black person, it happened to me when I was 17 and a half years old. I'm 67 years old. That's 50 years ago. Okay. And it's affected me. And that's not the only time. Okay. And how can you protect your boys? You know, your boys, they're scared, right? Like, I've already had to have that conversation with my son that no white person has to have with their child, that listen, you've got a target on your back, so you've got to behave a certain way, or you know, otherwise you're going to get shot, you're going to get killed. Nobody wants to have that situation. But to answer your question, if you saw a man being murdered and I stepped in front of you and I didn't allow you to attend to that man, and that man died, I would be arrested. I would go to jail on the spot, okay? If a man was being murdered and the man that's murdering him is murdering him and you're holding that person down, then you would be arrested. That's what those 3 men did. The one man kept anybody, he pushed him back. The other 2 men were holding the guy down while he was handcuffed, and he died. And so they're giving special treatment. They're still out there in the street, and that's
That, again, that it needs to change. That is what we're saying. It's just like, how can you not recognize that right here in front of our eyes right now, the same injustice that's been going on for 400 years is happening again? That's why people are outraged.
And you know, that outrage is rightfully so, right? Like, we're all outraged. I think I remember, and let me know if you saw this too. There was a lady that was being interviewed, and she was sharing how, you know, this is the type of how they feel with all these riots and all the looting. This is how they always feel walking through a regular city or a street. That's how uncertain it feels.
Listen, it is, there's so much I can tell you about this, but I'll give you just a couple of insights, okay? The number one fear of human beings is the fear of being left alone, fear of rejection. We know it as fear of not being loved. Well, it's more than just a cliche and more than an energetic thing. It is our survival instinct. Every baby is born with that need to keep people around because instinctively the baby knows that if it's left alone, it'll die. Period. You know, human babies, out of all the animals in all the animal kingdom, we're the ones that are dependent upon somebody else for our emotional and physical needs than any other animal. A human baby cannot take care of itself until it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You know, you can't put that baby out in the world. Its brain hasn't developed, okay? And so that fear that we have, when it shows up, it's called fight or flight. And what happens is cortisol, adrenaline, stress hormones get released inside of our bodies. Now, it's designed to get us off the dime, to get us to move, to get us to do something. But if it stays in our system too long, it damages our system, okay? Now keep that keep that in your back pocket for a second, okay? Now, there was an experiment, and again, if you're listening to this, you don't have to take my word for it. And this is, I want everybody to get that. I want you to understand what every Black person has going on inside of them. That we don't even know that it's there most of the time. When you get older, you know that it's there because you've had some experience with it. But there's an experiment, and all you got to do is go on YouTube and look up Black baby doll experiment. And what they did, Eric, was they took a baby doll, a Black baby doll and a white baby doll, and then they took children, Black children and white children, but they did them, you know, one at a time, and they took, and you'll see it, it'll break your heart, and they put the child in between the ages of 3 years old and 5 years old. They put them in front of the baby, and you hear the narrator say, show me, and by the way, this has been going on since the 40s. They do this experiment through the 40s. It's a little better now, but it still exists. They ask the child, show me the baby, point to the baby that's wrong, bad, and ugly. And all of those babies, all of those children point to the Black baby doll. It breaks your heart. And then they go, point to the baby doll that's good, pretty, and right. And all of those children point to the white baby doll. Now here's what that means. By age 3 o'clock, or 3 years old, that baby has learned that they are undesirable, that they're wrong, they're bad, and they're ugly, which means the cortisol that's being released in that baby's body constantly is higher than somebody else. Now they took, and then they say, show me the baby doll that's good, right, and pretty. They all point to the white one. Well, then they put the white children in the same seat, and they asked the white children, and they all did the same thing, which means it is systemic. It's across the board. Now, take that forward to what you just said. I walk this planet with that going through my system. Now, I consider myself evolved because of the techniques and the processes and the strategies that I know to help people get over that. But I still got it going on. That as I walk through, there's something in the back of my mind that says I could be murdered, I could be killed right now because I am not preferred. It's called low-level stress. And this is the reason why. African Americans have a higher level, one of the reasons, have a higher level of heart disease, heart attack, high blood pressure, hypertension, because that cortisol is constantly flowing through our systems. The level of cortisol in a Black man versus that of a white man in the United States is almost twice that it is of a white man. And it is because of that low level stress that's always being pumped through us. When a white person in this country And I've asked it, what happens when you're driving and you see the police lights in your rearview mirror? They always say, I get pissed off, now I'm going to get a ticket, and now I'm going to, in this calm. I fear for my life. Wow. I fear for my life. I know that this could be the last breath that I take on this earth, because that, and I've had it happen. I haven't been shot, but I've had police treat me very, very badly and tell me that this is going to be my last night on earth.
Wow. And that's for coming from people that are sworn to protect you and enforce the law, that, that it really, fascinates me, because that's the same thing. Like, if I get pulled over, I have this like, oh my God, I'm worried I'm going to get a ticket, but never has once have I thought, I'm going to get shot in the head, or what you've ever, police brutality or any of this thing. And it fascinates me that people that are supposed to look after us, that's supposed to look after the population, doesn't matter, whether you're Black, white, Hispanic, Latino, or Asian, Indigenous, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're one person, we're oneness, we're humanity, we're humans.
You know that, I know that, and everybody else knows that as well, except for the people that are overtly and steeped in racism. They don't believe that. They feel, and that's their strong belief. So we all know this, but like I said, the important thing is now it's about technique, process, strategy to change the beliefs so that we change the behaviors.
So, you touched on, the leading with love. Describe, a process that somebody, that maybe is looking at this from, a really subjective point of view, can be taken along in, again, I know this has, this is something that would be an evolutionary process, but is there a way that, to anybody that's listening, that might be listening to this, can have a process to really share more compassion, to put themselves in a different perspective, and to allow themselves to really change their belief associated with what is happening? And maybe that's just fear all entailed, right? Like,
yes,
through COVID, or through their experiences of life, or through what's happening now with the racial and the rioting, and how does that how can that process be defined, and can it be?
Yeah, it can be, yes. And as you know, like I said, one of my expertise is to help people get over fears and phobias and emotional challenges. And so a longer conversation than we have right now, but I'll give everybody a really simple tool that you can use. And that is this. Number one, it always starts with awareness is always the first step. So you've got to ask yourself, what do you already believe? Now, it can be one of two, it can be several things, but it falls in just a few different categories. I don't know what I believe about Black people or race and all those things right now. Or I believe everybody's equal and everything's fine. Or, I think, people are unequal, and whatever comes up, okay? When an emotion happens, so first off is to assess what the emotion is, okay? And that is uncertainty. For most people, it's uncertainty right now. For some people, it's anger. For some people, it's frustration. Because some people are saying right now, I'm sick of hearing about these racial issues, So whatever comes up, that's the emotion. So whatever it is, no judgment, okay? Yes. Second thing is, what do you want to feel? What is going to be the best emotion to feel instead of that? And in this case, it's love. Not at the risk of sounding too unicorns and rainbows and and all those things, it is just love. And so once you have those two things, you do something that's called a pattern interrupt. And that is this. Whenever you're feeling something, if that pattern, that's a pattern of emotion and thought, and your physical body is a certain way. If you're sitting, we've all had this kind of situation where we're sitting somewhere, maybe you're sitting in your living room and you go, I need to go get an ink pen out of the kitchen. And you stand up and you go in the kitchen, and there you are standing in the kitchen going, what the hell did I come in here for? Okay. Happens to all of us. Well, it's a psychological mechanism that happens called a pattern interrupt. Whenever you're in, because when you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking about the ink pen, you're in a certain, you're in a certain focus, certain emotion, and certain physical position. As soon as you radically change that, you're no longer in that focus, you're no longer in that emotion, and you're no longer in that physical position. And you create a blank spot, a vacuum in your head. And it is a vacuum. And nature always wants to fill up a vacuum. And so all you got to do is feel bad. In other words, if it's uncertainty, if it's whatever, feel bad, and then stand up and shake yourself out. And what you've done is you've interrupted the pattern and you've created a blank spot, and then just smile. Because in that moment, your brain releases dopamine and you feel good. And if you do that enough times, you won't be able to feel bad anymore. Because what you're doing is you're literally replacing that pattern. Now that's really, really simple. And people, if you do that over and over again, you won't feel that way anymore. Now that's a really easy, or really simple way, if you will, to shift your behavior, your belief on it. But then you got to take it further and you got to say, okay, well, what can I do? What should I do? What do I want to do? And that kind of thing. But at the very least, you're getting yourself out of that pattern of fear, or that pattern of, and this works with anything, by the way, that pattern of fear or that pattern of doubt or uncertainty.
Wow. And by the way, this is something that you continuously teach and shows up in values in your work every single day. So this is not a learned, this is a learned thing that you continue to implement for your staff, for your family, for the people that you serve, and somebody that, continues to learn this pattern and makes it better, becomes more aware, becomes more able to do this in a faster way, rather than, waiting to, because I know that for myself, since I've learned this, I've become more aware of those situations where I can become, instead of it taking days, it takes, maybe a couple hours.
Yeah. It is, well, it's like, one of the things that I noticed about you right away, and anybody that's been around you for 2 seconds knows that bodybuilding and taking care of your body is very, very important. You're a beast, and that doesn't, and anybody that looks at you doesn't say, oh, that guy was born with that. We know the work, the tenacity, the everything that it took for you to get that. Well, it's the same way with working on your brain. It's the same way with working on your personal development. It's not something you go do one time. It's a practice. It is a rehearsal that the more you do it, the better you get at it.
So, you've offered so much value in regards to how we can really, work out, our minds, our emotions, where we can lead with love. Would you mind sharing, because there's so much success that you've overcome, or that you've created, and you've overcome this and adapted to different circumstances and been able to continue to move forward. What would be one reason why people fail?
Well, first off, lack of planning and scheduling. That's first reason. Second thing is lack of acknowledgement and reward once they've done something. Because we all see people say, well, I'm not very focused. Yes, you are. Everybody's focused when you want to be. When things are going right. And if I said to you, there's a fire, get out of that door, you'll focus on that door right now and you go get out of that door. The problem is we get distracted. There's so many distractions, and we've all done this. I've done it as well. I get up in the morning and I go, I'm going to do this all, today. And at the end of the day, I go, I forgot to do this, and this. Yeah. Because I didn't schedule it and because I didn't remind myself. Get out your phone and remind yourself. Tell Siri to remind you 10 times a day if it takes. Okay, so that's number one, is scheduling. The second thing is when they do something and they accomplish something, even if they didn't succeed at it, even if they do succeed at it, what most people do is they walk away from it and just go, okay, well, that's over, that kind of thing, okay? Your nervous system works on praise and reward. Anything with a nervous system works that way. So if you praise something, if you acknowledge something and you reward something, when you've done it, the nervous system goes, I want to do that again. And that's what encourages you to get up early, stay up late, and do the next stuff. So it's the carrot on the stick. It's what you're going to get. And then when you through your journey, reward yourself. It's like, I'm assuming that when you lift that 10,000 pound weight that you lift and you put it back down on the bar. You don't just go, oh, that was hard. You know, you probably go, yes, I did it. And your nervous system goes, do it again. You know, we got a puppy around here. And dogs with a nervous system, it's the same thing. You go, sit. And when at first, when the puppy looks at you, it's like goes, what the hell does that mean? But then you push his little butt down, he sits down, you give him a cookie. And you praise him, you go, good dog. And then he looks at you again, you go, sit. Push it down, give him a cookie. Pretty soon he goes, wait a minute. Every time that word happens, if I put my butt on the ground, I get a cookie and I get praised. It happens automatically. Well, we're just as silly as those puppies. We're the same thing. And so we got to give it to ourselves. You know me, shaking that ass and things like that. It's all about praise. You know, it's what I call the achiever's dilemma. And that is achievers. I've had the privilege of working with millionaires, billionaires, and Grammy winners, and sports figures, all those things. And the biggest challenge that most of them have is even when they succeed at something, they go, I should have done better, you know, or, you know, someone else did better than me. Screw that. You need to dance and shake like crazy and go, I did it. That's what makes you want to do more.
That's huge. And you're right. Like, you know, I think that's, myself included, I think there's so many times that, you know, I've overcome like different things, and I'm like, I haven't even got to close to a capacity of where I want to be. And instead of, my brain says, how can I get forward? I don't even recognize. And this, again, this is me just speaking. This is not me speaking for anybody. This is me speaking for myself. Is I sit there and I say, I should have done better. I could have done better. You know, and I don't reward myself. So that's massive. It really helps me right now, just personally. So thank you for that, Joseph.
Yeah.
One thing I want to just quickly touch on, and you've spoken that you're always around these, you know, high vibing, you know, high intense, high performers, high achievers. What is it like, you know, to really spend, and you've spent, you know, the past 30 years around, you know, a great high achiever, you know, Mr. Tony Robbins, right? What is that like, and how does that allow you to continue to bring your best? Because, you know, Joseph, you bring your best every single time I see you. And what does that like? Because it's like, you know, we always have mentors or teachers that are ahead of us, or people that are alongside of us. And, you know, I'm sure there's so many people that are curious, is like, how do you continue to stay at your peak performance when there's that big of a high achiever, you know, around you, and, you know, support? Is that, how does that feel to have that type of
first off, I'm going to give you my saying, and you'll explain how I feel. Okay.
Yeah.
The saying is, don't be in awe, be awesome.
Boom.
And what that means is, you know, everybody can teach me something. There's a high achiever that makes billions of dollars, but guess what? He can't play bass guitar like I do. You know,
I love it.
Everybody can teach me something, but I can teach somebody else something as well. So I walk into a room of high achievers, and I never, I used to, until I started to do exactly what I said before, reward myself for the things and make myself feel awesome. I never feel intimidated or feel less than, because I'm just as good as them in some area. I'm better at something that they're not, you know? And so number one, don't be in awe, be awesome. And they appreciate it. I mean, if you think about it, it doesn't feel good when somebody's just fawning over you and just going, oh, you're awesome, you're great, stuff like that. You don't want that. What you want is for somebody that is you know, equal to you, that feels good. You know, those accolades, that goes away very, very quick. If you have that much of an ego that you got to have people, you know, fawning over you and you know, in awe of you, that's very uncomfortable, especially for people that are high achievers. So what I do is I always think, okay, well, what value can I bring to their life? And I'll say that. I'll go to somebody that has you know, some specialized knowledge, something I want. I go, hey, listen, let me ask you a question. I want to add value to your life. You know, what can I do for you? You know, to show you that I do. What can I offer you? And most of the time they'll go, you know, you don't have to do anything for me. What can I do for you? And I'll go, okay, well, maybe teach me this, that kind of thing. And it's always a trade-off. You and I are doing it right now. You and I are doing it right now. you asked me if I would do this,
Yep.
and I said to you, I'd be honored to do it. You know why? Because I'm fulfilling my destiny and my goal by doing this. You're assisting me in getting my message out and doing the thing that I said before, which is impacting as many people as I possibly can. So I appreciate the nice things that you said about me, but I also, you know this from our very first meeting, I'm in awe of you, but I know I'm awesome too, you know.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? I think that since when we met to how we communicate now, I was more in, like, I feel more comfortable even having the conversation, right? It's more of like, because it was still before I was in awe, and I didn't maybe then realize my own awesomeness, you know what I mean? And now it's like you recognize that and you get comfortable and you're more pumped, and you know the value you can give.
And what you'll find, by the way, with the greats, is they will help you feel awesome as well.
Yeah.
If you find somebody that's a high achiever, or somebody that's like that, and they don't make you feel good, you don't want to be around them that long. That's a jerk, you know, and you don't want to be around that person.
I love that, Joseph. I know, you know, we're conscious of time, and I just, you know, I want to, you know, really respect your time. Before we go, I just wanted to ask, you know, for anybody that's listening right now, how can they, you know, find you? Where can they, you know, get more information about, you know, anything that you're doing, any events that you're holding, any online events that you're doing? Is there, if you, whatever you share, I'll end up putting into the show notes anyways. So please, if there's
I actually have a gift, if you'll allow me to give
absolutely, please. Yes,
a few things, and it's free, and it's not a lead capture, it's not a free trial, it's none of that stuff. It's an absolute free thing, because right now the world is craving for leadership, and leadership only comes from somebody that has self-certainty. So self-certainty, not confidence, not that, self-certainty. And so I created a program, and it's called the Self-Certainty Masterclass. And if you go to my Instagram, now if you go on my website, you have to pay for it. Now I think it's like $500-600 or something like that, but it's free on my Instagram. If you go to my Instagram and click on the I'll give you my address here in a second. Click on the profile. There's a link below my profile, and just look for Self-Certainty Masterclass. Click on it. It's an audio program and a workbook that you can download, or you can do it right there on your phone. And what it's designed to do, it's not just Joseph talking and motivating you. It's strategies and some things that you do to get some results. And so my Instagram is I am Joseph McClendon. You'll put it in the notes there.
Yeah, I'll put it in the notes, and also I'll put the link that you have in your
that'll be nice.
In your Instagram in the notes as well, too, for anybody that may be driving, or just so it's simple for them to get to it.
And with regard to any other things that I'm doing, you can go to my website, which is just myname.com, josephmcclendon.com. Awesome. Or LinkedIn, or any of those things. I'm easy to find. And what I encourage you to do is this. You know, let me say this in closing, Eric. First off, thank you so much for allowing me to do this, and your trust with your peeps. Is that I have 5 things for people to do right now. One of them, like I said, lead with love. Okay, but that's for other people and for yourself. The next thing is to meditate. Meditate means take some time. Just spend some silent time with yourself, even if it's just 10 minutes, and listen to the voice that's speaking inside of you. The next thing is to move your body in some way, constantly. You know, every 10 minutes or so, get up and, you know, I got rebounders, and I got, you know, go for a walk, stand up, do something. And then the next thing is mitigate the fear. Mitigate means to make less than. And so I already gave you like an example. Feel bad, interrupt the pattern, feel good. Turn off the television, you know, turn off the bad news. You know, I don't want you to be uninformed, but you don't have to watch that same thing over and over again. You watch it once in the morning, watch it once in the evening. If anything bad happens, you'll know about it, okay? And then the last thing is mentor. And that means, like you're doing right now, you're listening to Eric and myself. We're mentors, so to speak, and you're learning. And I want to add to that, and it's the reason why I'm giving this program away, is I want you to be a mentor as well. And blame it on Eric and blame it on me. You don't have to go, I thought this up. You don't have to, go, I learned this from Eric or I learned this from Joseph. And you teach somebody, because whatever you can do to help somebody else feel, think, and do better helps us all. And so you be a mentor, learn something, or share things, I encourage you, follow me, follow Eric on Instagram and things like that. I'm constantly putting stuff out that is in that vein. So you be the mentor. And then lastly, I'll say this for everybody, that, if you're listening to this right now, it means that you vibrate at a higher level of consciousness than the average person. The masses, not so much. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that they're not aware. Those of us that dare to dream while the rest of the world is having a nightmare, we're not only going to create the prosperity that we go after, our goals and our dreams and desires, but we're also going to become, because of our accomplishments and the things that we do and the people that we become the beacons of possibility for other people. So at the very least, as you grow as a person and other people see you and experience you, there's a part of them that's going, well, because Eric did it, I can do it. And then that way we'll do that. Lastly, life is exactly what you dare to make it. And fortune favors the bold. So the trick to life is to constantly boldly step up and dare to make your life magnificent.
Make it magnificent. A magnificent moment with Joseph McClendon. Thank you kindly, Joseph. I have one last question that I ask everybody in closing.
Sure.
If you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
You're seeing them on the walls behind me. Okay?
I love it.
Yeah, there's 3 things that I would do. I would spend as much of that time with my son and the people that I love as I possibly can. The second thing I would do is I'm a musician and I love music. I'd play as much music as I possibly could. The third thing that I would do is I would get my affairs in order, because my legacy are the things that I've written and created and produced, and I'd make sure that I pass that on to other people.
Beautiful, Joseph. Joseph, again, thank you kindly for your time. Thank you kindly for all of the insight. And I'm just super grateful and excited to, share all your message and your brilliance with the world.
My pleasure, my friend. God bless, and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, you bet.